Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Willie, and this is the encouraging word for today. Let's talk about suffering today. The Bible is full of promises from God to help us in our trouble, that to help us overcome our trouble, to relieve our suffering. In this world, we will have trouble and suffering, but God promises to be with us and promises to never give us more than we can handle. He promises that the suffering will end, and he promises to bring healing and restoration even in the worst situations, and he promises to use it in our lives for good and in the lives of other people for good. But the first thing we have to do is differentiate why we are suffering. And that's where Psalm 107 verse 17 comes in. Listen. Some became fools through their rebellious ways and suffered affliction or suffering because of their iniquities. The key issue is, why are we suffering? Why are you suffering? There are three basic reasons for suffering. One, it comes from just living in a broken world where there are broken people and bad things happen to good people all the time. Unfairness exists. And in those situations, God's promise is there for you. God understands. Jesus lived in the broken world. A second kind of suffering comes from being a Christian. This is suffering for persecution. And God gives us an even greater promise when we suffer as Christians. In 1 Peter 4:16, he says, however you suffer as a Christian, praise God that you bear that name. It's an honor. The apostles counted it an honor that they could suffer for Christ. And finally, is what Psalm 107 is talking about. It's suffering because of our own actions. And it's so true. This is so true. Much suffering is because of our own sin or own rebelliousness. When that's the case, we don't look to the promises of God. We look to our heart, because God offers forgiveness and an opportunity to change. And once we do that, our suffering will lessen. So what is the cause of our suffering? That's a key question. And God has promises for you if you suffer unjustly. Today's challenge is to encourage someone you know who is suffering due to the brokenness of this world. The prayer focus is to ask God to show you how your suffering is caused by your own actions, if it is. Finally, meditate on that verse, Psalm 107, verse 17, because it is so true. And I'll see you next Monday. Have a great, great weekend.